Welcome back to The Life with the Browns. Everything you thought you knew about Cody Brown is about to be shattered. The courtroom wasn't just a room that day, it was an arena. Marble walls carried the sound of whispered tension. The ceiling seemed to hold its breath, and every eye, every camera lens, every reporter's pen was locked onto one man, Cody Brown. For over a decade, America had seen him as the charismatic patriarch of sister wives, smiling, laughing, showing off the image of a father of many, the so-called spiritual leader of a family unlike any other. But today, there were no TLC producers, no glossy edits, no playful confessionals. Today, Cody Brown wasn't on television, he was on trial. And sitting across from him, her hands calmly folded, her gaze burning with quiet intensity, was Christine Brown. She wasn't just his former wife anymore, she was the plaintiff. She was the woman who, with nothing but her presence and a mountain of paperwork, was about to tear apart the illusion Cody had spent years constructing. The press could barely contain themselves. For years, they had covered the breakups, the fights, the endless cycle of promises and betrayals that played out on TV. But none of that compared to what was unfolding here. This wasn't drama for ratings. This wasn't gossip. This was real, legally binding, and possibly devastating. Christine's voice hadn't spoken yet, but her evidence spoke louder than any words. Hidden accounts, secret properties, investments Cody had siphoned off away from the so-called family pot. Millions of dollars, she claimed, were tucked into shadows where none of the wives or the children could reach. The judge entered. A silence so sharp it could cut glass filled the courtroom. One strike of the gavel, and suddenly Cody wasn't a TV personality anymore. He was a defendant. Christine's attorney rose with a quiet confidence. "Your Honor," he began, his words steady and deliberate, "this case is not about speculation. It is not about ratings. It is about proof. Proof that Cody Brown has deliberately hidden assets from his wives and children. Assets worth millions." Gasps rippled across the gallery. The reporters leaned forward as though they were about to catch fire. Even Cody's posture betrayed him. Shoulders slouched, hands gripping the table, eyes darting to Christine, to the judge, to the pile of incriminating documents stacked like a tower of truth against him. His attorney jumped to his feet, voice urgent. "Your Honor, my client has always acted in good faith. This family is unconventional, yes, but never dishonest. We urge the court not to be swayed by headlines or bias." But the words felt hollow. Everyone in the room knew it. Because Christine's attorney was already opening the first folder, pulling out bank statements and property deeds that could speak for themselves. When the judge looked down at the papers, her slight nod of acknowledgement was more damning than any scream. Cody's fists clenched under the table. For years, he had manipulated the narrative on TV, bending reality into something he could control. But here there was no editing, no safety net. Just cold evidence and a courtroom that demanded truth. And Christine? She didn't flinch, not once. Her eyes locked on Cody like a woman who had waited years for this moment. She wasn't here to humiliate him. She was here for justice, for herself, for her children, and for every piece of the family's legacy he had tried to pocket. The judge's voice cut through the tension. "Mr. Brown, you will have your chance to respond. But make no mistake, this court will examine every fact, every paper, every dollar." The air in the room grew heavy. The audience wasn't watching a reality show anymore. They were watching a reckoning. A man who had built a kingdom of wives and children, now stripped of his confidence, forced to defend the empire he swore was built on love, but may have been built on lies. And as the first witness prepared to take the stand, one truth became undeniable. The world was about to see a side of Cody Brown that no camera had ever captured before. This wasn't just family drama anymore. This was survival. This was survival. No camera crew could soften what was happening here. This was reality, raw, brutal, and unforgiving. Cody Brown wasn't just facing public opinion anymore. He was staring down the gavel of the law. Across from him sat Christine Brown, silent, steady, immovable. Her stillness cut sharper than any scream. She didn't need theatrics. She didn't need tears. Her quiet, unshakable presence said everything. "I know the truth. And today, so will everyone else." The judge leaned forward, her tone slicing the air. "Mr. Brown," she said, her gaze cold, "transparency is crucial in this courtroom. Any attempt at evasion will be dealt with firmly." Cody swallowed hard. For years, he had balanced multiple households, shifted money through hidden accounts, kept secrets tucked away behind the curtain of family unity. But nothing, no spin, no charm, could shield him from this moment. Under the piercing eyes of the law, his empire of control was unraveling piece by piece. Christine's attorney began to lay the battlefield bare. Document after document hit the table like daggers. Bank records showing transfers that seemed deliberately complex. Property deeds signed without the wife's knowledge. Legal contracts tying Cody to trusts and accounts never mentioned on television, never shared with his family. Each sheet of paper was another stone in the avalanche. And with every disclosure, Cody's confidence crumbled. The witnesses came next. Former advisors, friends, even distant relatives, all testifying with fragments of knowledge that painted the same damning picture. Money shifted in secret. Decisions made without consent. Benefits pocketed for Cody while others were kept in the dark. Christine sat there like a general who had already mapped out the entire war. Her attorney spoke, but the strategy was hers. The months of preparation, the countless hours gathering evidence, all of it had led to this very moment. Cody's attorney tried to object, his voice shaky. "Your Honor, these documents are being read out of context." But the judge silenced him with a raised hand. "The court will hear every argument, but Mr. Brown must make full disclosure. Anything less will be noted." The words landed like shackles around Cody's neck. There was no running from this. No editing room to fix it. No producer to reframe the narrative. Outside, the press swarmed like vultures. Headlines were already forming. Cody Brown faces $1 million lawsuit. Secrets exposed in courtroom showdown. For viewers who had followed the Browns for years, this was unthinkable. The blurred line between reality TV and real-world consequence had just snapped, and Cody was at the center of the wreckage. Inside, his composure slipped further. Fingers twitching, eyes darting, his posture folding in on itself. With each page of evidence, the picture became clearer. This wasn't sloppy bookkeeping. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was deliberate concealment. Christine's attorney placed a new folder before the judge. Inside were bank statements showing hundreds of thousands of dollars funneled through accounts with unfamiliar names. Property records that revealed homes and cars never disclosed to the family. The gasps in the courtroom were sharp, audible. For the first time, even Cody's lawyer couldn't mask the unease. The evidence was simply too overwhelming. Christine, meanwhile, remained the picture of calm resolve. Her hands rested on the table, her gaze unwavering. She didn't gloat. She didn't flinch. She simply waited, because she knew the truth was doing the work for her. The judge flipped through the documents slowly, her expression darkening with each page. Silence fell heavier than ever before. The only sounds were the rustle of papers and the occasional camera flash, frozen moments of Cody's downfall captured for the world. For years, Cody Brown had been untouchable. A man who played the role of patriarch, spinning his life into something larger than reality. But now he was nothing more than a defendant cornered by facts. Christine's attorney leaned forward, his voice ringing with conviction. "Your Honor, these documents prove without a doubt that Mr. Brown has concealed assets meant to be shared with his wives and children. This is not speculation. This is fact." The courtroom leaned in as though the very walls were listening. Cody's face had gone pale, his fingers gripping the table edge as if he could stop himself from drowning in the flood of evidence. And then it happened, the briefest moment. Cody's eyes flicked toward Christine. She was already staring at him, calm and unbroken. And in that silent exchange, the truth was undeniable. The man who once controlled every narrative had finally lost control. The war for the Brown family's legacy had truly begun. There was no anger in Christine's face, only a chilling resolve. Calm, steady, unshakable. The power dynamic had shifted, and everyone in the courtroom could feel it. The man who once held the entire family in the palm of his hand was no longer untouchable. The balance that had defined decades of sister-wives history was tipping, and Cody Brown sat at the very center of the storm. Christine's attorney rose, the weight of years of silence breaking with his words. "Every one of these records speaks for itself," he declared, voice echoing in the still courtroom. The documents in front of him told a damning story. Deliberate concealment, money siphoned without consent, choices made in secret while wives and children were left in the dark. Gasps rippled through the gallery. The audience, part courtroom, part press, part diehard Sister Wives fans, leaned forward. It was as though the image of Cody Brown, the smiling patriarch of television fame, was collapsing right before their eyes. Cody's lawyer sprang up, his voice sharp, almost desperate. "Your Honor, context is critical here. These accounts, these transfers, They're not what they appear to be. This is a family of multiple households, multiple legal arrangements. It's complex, and the court must consider this complexity before drawing conclusions. The judge's eyes narrowed, unimpressed. She accepted the objection but spoke with steel. The court will consider all context and testimony. But it must be understood, transparency is not optional. The evidence presented so far demonstrates a failure of openness. Justice demands that we uncover the truth. The words fell heavy, like an early verdict not yet spoken. Then the witnesses began. One by one, experts filed in. Financial planners charted the path of the money, accounts tucked away, transfers that led nowhere, properties never disclosed. Friends who had known the family for years took the stand, speaking in hushed tones about real estate and investments Cody had never revealed to his wives. Each voice layered the truth, brick upon brick, building a case that no spin or legal defense could easily undo. Christine sat still, her gaze steady, her silence louder than Cody's frantic shifting beside her. The more the facts poured out, the more Cody's facade cracked. His jaw clenched. His hands twitched. His eyes darted from table to table, wall to wall, searching for a way out. He was no longer the man in control. He was the man cornered. By the time the first session neared its end, the gallery was buzzing. This was no ordinary case. This was a dismantling, a stripping away of decades of secrecy. The patriarch who had once sold an image of harmony to millions was being unmasked in real time, under oath. And then, just when the courtroom seemed ready to exhale, Christine's attorney leaned forward. His voice dropped low, deliberate. "Your Honor," he began, "there is one final piece of evidence that will make clear the full extent of Mr. Brown's actions." The room froze. Even the shuffling of papers stopped. All eyes turned to him. Cody stiffened, his shoulders tight, his breath shallow. He knew what was coming. The mask was about to shatter. The attorney opened a heavy folder. The pages within seemed to radiate with the weight of betrayal. He pushed them toward the judge. "This," he said, his words calm but deadly precise, "is the family trust. Formed years ago. A trust with Mr. Brown as the sole trustee, granting him complete control over every asset belonging to his wives and children, all without their knowledge." The explosion of gasps shook the walls. Reporters scribbled furiously. Fans in the gallery clutched their chests in disbelief. The judge examined the trust, her expression unreadable but her focus razor-sharp. "Mr. Brown," she said at last, "this document gives you total dominion over assets meant to be shared among family members. Were the beneficiaries made aware of this power you hold?" Cody's lips parted, but no words came. His eyes sank to the table. The silence was damning. His lawyer scrambled to cover him. "Your Honor, this was never intended to keep money from the family. The trust was a legal tool, meant for protection and efficiency, nothing more. Any suggestion of secrecy is misinterpretation." But Christine's attorney cut back in, unwavering. "With all due respect, Your Honor, the evidence reveals a clear pattern. Secrecy, control, a calculated effort to keep millions hidden from wives and children who had every right to know. This is not misinterpretation. This is deliberate concealment." The weight of those words pressed down on everyone in the room. Cody's knuckles whitened as he gripped the table. His years of managing multiple wives, homes, and stories had been reduced to one damning truth. He had built an empire on secrets. Christine finally spoke, her voice calm but cutting. "These funds were for the family, not for one man's discretion. To keep that kind of power hidden is not just wrong, it is immoral." Her words struck harder than any piece of evidence. The courtroom leaned in, spellbound by her strength. Cody sat silent, his once polished image crumbling. What he had thought of as protection was being reframed before the world as domination. And now, for the first time, he couldn't control the narrative. The judge placed the papers down with care. Her voice carried the gravity of a gavel yet to fall. "Mr. Brown, the court must weigh not just your intent, but the consequences of your actions. Control without disclosure is not stewardship, it is exploitation. The law cannot turn away from that." By the time the session closed, the courtroom was electrified. Reporters stormed outside, Twitter ignited with hashtags and arguments, and headlines exploded across the internet. Cody Brown's secret trust revealed, millions concealed from family. Inside, Christine sat steady as stone. Cody sat unraveling. This was no longer about television drama, no longer about a family squabble made public. This was about justice, about decades of choices finally dragged into the light. And as the gavel struck recess, one truth was undeniable. Cody Brown's empire of secrecy was collapsing. And the world was watching it burn. And the world was watching it burn. Cody's lawyer rose again, his voice measured but unyielding. Your Honor, Mr. Brown has always acted in good faith. The trust was never designed to hide assets or defraud the family. It was established as a legal framework to manage complicated finances. The words rang with rehearsed precision. Every phrase was crafted to stress Cody's intentions, not his actions. Cody, for his part, leaned forward, his own voice softer than the room had ever heard from him, carrying the weight of both desperation and pride. I never meant to hurt my family, he said, his gaze flickering to Christine only to recoil. Everything I did, I thought it was for all of us. Taking care of multiple households, different children, different needs, it's complicated. I made choices I thought were best. He swallowed hard, the silence of the room pressing down like a mountain. Each word lingered, not as absolution, but as evidence to be dissected, picked apart, and judged. Christine's attorney didn't wait. He leaned forward, slicing through Cody's fragile defense like steel through glass. Intent does not negate effect, he declared, his tone sharp and uncompromising. Whether or not Mr. Brown believed he was acting in the family's best interest, the reality is clear. Assets were withheld. Transparency was disregarded. And that, Your Honor, is what matters. A murmur swept the gallery. The sound of shifting papers, gasps, and whispers filled the air. Cody fidgeted, tugging at his sleeve, running a hand through his hair. For years, being criticized on television had been one thing, controlled, edited, spun for an audience. But this was unedited, legal, binding, and millions of dollars now hung in the balance. Witnesses filed in one after another. Financial planners confirmed what Christine's side alleged. Trusts can be legitimate, but beneficiaries must be informed. Advisors, pressed under cross-examination, admitted that yes, Cody alone held sole authority over the accounts. Friends, some with shaky voices, acknowledged that decisions were made without consulting wives who should have had a voice. Every testimony backfired. Every witness chipped away at Cody's credibility. Instead of reinforcing his good faith, they revealed a pattern: control, centralization, concealment. The judge listened in silence, occasionally turning a page, her face a mask. Each pause she allowed stretched like an eternity, reminding the room that her verdict would not be swayed by spin or sentiment. Finally, she broke her silence. Mr. Brown, she said, her voice steady, authoritative. The court recognizes that caring for a complicated family involves difficult choices. But care does not permit unilateral control over assets owned by multiple beneficiaries. This court must consider both intent and result. The outcome here, regardless of motive, has been concealment. The room tightened as if it inhaled all at once. Cody swallowed, nodding faintly, the meaning sinking into him like a slow poison. His entire defense, intentions, complexity, good faith, was collapsing under the weight of outcomes. Christine, by contrast, sat serene, her gaze steady, her papers neatly stacked. Every objection, every stall tactic, every half-hearted defense, she had anticipated it. And she was ready, evidence in hand, calm in her resolve. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Cody twitching, unraveling, Christine composed, unwavering. For the public, inside the courtroom and following every update online, the story was rewriting itself in real time. The patriarch, once untouchable, was now on trial in every sense, legally, morally, and in the court of public opinion. By the end of the day, it was obvious to all. Cody had endured his first serious blow. No amount of talking about good intentions could undo the stack of documents, the testimony of planners and friends, or the quiet ferocity of Christine's stance. As the gavel fell to adjourn, the room released its collective breath. Cameras flashed. Reporters bolted for the doors. Twitter erupted with hashtags: Cody on trial, Brown family betrayal, Christine vindicated. Cody sat rigid, hands clasped, jaw tight. The weight of what had just happened bore down on him like a verdict not yet spoken. His entire identity, provider, leader, patriarch, was crumbling. Christine, gathering her papers, allowed herself the faintest flicker of satisfaction. The world outside was already spinning with speculation. TLC producers whispered in panic. Fans warred on Reddit. The image of Cody Brown as the commanding patriarch had cracked, and America was watching. Inside, the judge's final words still echoed. Intent cannot override effect. Managing is not the same as controlling without disclosing. The sword now hung over Cody's head, suspended, inevitable. The drama wasn't ending here. This was only the beginning. The judge's voice cut through the charged air like a blade, crisp and unrelenting. Disclosure and accountability are not negotiable. The words weren't just spoken. They were delivered like a verdict unto themselves, heavy with the weight of justice and echoing in every corner of the chamber. Silence fell, but it wasn't the peaceful kind. It was the silence that comes when truth is cornering a man who built his life on carefully constructed illusions. Cody shifted in his seat, his normally bronzed face drained of color, lips pressed into a tight line. For years, he had danced across the stage of reality television, projecting control, power, and the image of a man holding together an extraordinary family structure. But here, under the fluorescent lights of the courtroom, his charisma failed him. His shoulders were tense, his knuckles pale as he gripped the table, as though trying to anchor himself to a world that was crumbling beneath his feet. The judge leaned forward, her eyes unwavering. Where assets are being held singly, without notification to rightful owners, the court cannot ignore the implications. The audience leaned in, hearts pounding as if they themselves were on trial. The atmosphere was suffocating. Every camera flash a lightning bolt, every pen scratch a drumbeat of history being recorded. Reporters jostled, eager to immortalize the downfall of a man once untouchable. But no camera, no lens, no headline could capture the sheer gravity of this moment. The slow dismantling of a patriarch. Christine sat opposite him, calm and steady. She didn't fidget, she didn't glance away. She had waited for this moment, built for it. The years of suppression, of watching secrets pile up and being told her voice didn't matter. Today, all of it had led to this reckoning. She didn't need raised voices or dramatics. Her stillness alone was a declaration. I am no longer under your control. The judge continued, her words sharp, deliberate. Mr. Brown, the court has to consider not just your intent, but also your actions and their effects. While intent is significant, it does not absolve you of responsibility. The evidence presented, hidden trusts, undisclosed accounts, concealed property, shows resources meant for multiple beneficiaries were placed under your sole dominion. That is not leadership. That is concealment. Cody swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing visibly. His heart pounded, not just from fear of financial loss, but from the realization that his carefully guarded secrets had not only been discovered, but paraded for the world to see. Christine's lawyer sat poised, documents stacked like weapons in front of him. With each new sheet revealed, another nail was driven into Cody's coffin of credibility. The courtroom spectators, some longtime fans of Sister Wives, others hardened journalists, felt the tide shift entirely. The myth of Cody Brown, the confident patriarch who always knew best, was unraveling before their eyes. Then came the moment. The gavel hadn't even struck yet, but the air was taut, electric. Every person in that room held their breath. Christine, her hands folded neatly, exhaled softly as if she already knew what was coming. Cody sat frozen, eyes darting between the judge and the documents that had betrayed him. The judge's voice rose again, steady, authoritative, merciless. This court finds that Mr. Cody Brown exercised unilateral control over family assets, concealed them knowingly, and acted in ways that amount to willful evasion. Therefore, Mr. Brown is ordered to pay the amount of $258,000 immediately to the parties entitled. Furthermore, all undisclosed properties or accounts under his possession are hereby seized under the custody of the court, pending equitable distribution among rightful heirs. The chamber erupted. Gasps, muffled cries, and the furious click of cameras filled the room like a storm breaking over still waters. Cody's jaw clenched, his fists trembling at the table. His face betrayed a mix of rage, disbelief, and humiliation. For once, there was no script to fall back on, no TLC producer to spin the narrative, no family member to cushion the blow. This was the raw truth carved into record by the court. Christine didn't gloat. She didn't smile broadly or raise her head in triumph. Instead, her lips curled into the faintest trace of satisfaction, the satisfaction of justice, of truth finally spoken aloud where no one could silence it. The gavel came down, thud! A thunderclap echoing against the wood-paneled walls. The judge's words hung in the air, final and immovable. Reporters swarmed outside the courtroom within minutes. Headlines were already forming. Cody Brown ordered to pay $258K. Family secrets exposed in courtroom shock. Sister Wives patriarch loses control of assets in landmark ruling. From TV to court, Cody Brown's public reckoning. Social media exploded. Hashtags trended worldwide. Yarg Cody exposed, Yarg Christine wins, Brown family truth. Some defended Cody, insisting he was a man trying to manage chaos. But most sided with Christine, praising her calm, her strategy, and her refusal to bow down anymore. Inside the courtroom, Christine gathered her papers neatly, her composure almost regal. She glanced at Cody once, not with hate, but with a quiet reminder. This was your doing. Then she walked out, reporters calling her name, flashes illuminating her face. When asked for a statement, she said simply, "The truth matters. Accountability matters. This was for the family." Her words ricocheted across millions of screens, cementing her as more than just a reality TV ex-wife. She had become a symbol of justice, of perseverance, of what happens when silence breaks. For Cody, the walk out of that courtroom felt longer than any scene he had ever filmed. The sunlight outside didn't warm him, it burned. Microphones thrust forward, reporters shouting, "Mr. Brown!" Do you feel betrayed? What about the hidden trusts? Do you accept the judge's ruling? But his answers stumbled, empty, drowned out by the noise of a nation now dissecting his downfall. At home, the ripple effects had only begun. His children, his wives, ex and current, were watching, weighing, and judging in their own way. The patriarch's throne had been stripped bare, replaced by something he had never expected: accountability. Christine returned home with a peace Cody couldn't fathom. She hadn't fought for revenge, but for fairness. And in doing so, she had shifted the balance of power, not just for herself, but for every wife, every child, every member of the Brown family who had ever been silenced under Cody's control. The verdict was more than financial. It was moral. It was cultural. It was a warning. Because when the gavel fell, it didn't just mark the end of a case. It marked the end of Cody Brown's unchecked reign. And as Christine's final words echoed online, "The truth matters," millions believed her. Millions believed her.